Good morning, friends. This is Dr. Vipul Kapoor again. I welcome you all to the class of semester 5. Friends, today we are going to discuss one of the very important topics of paper number 12. As I told you in my previous lecture, in paper number 12, we are going to study criticism. And in criticism, we need to study some of the important critiques of literature. And today, we want to discuss Plato. We want to discuss Plato as a philosopher, Plato as a moralist, and Plato as a critique. Before we discuss various theories propagated by Plato, first, let me tell you something about the biographical details of Plato. Friends, Plato was a great Greek philosopher who was living in Greece in about 5th century BC. 5th century BC, and he was a Greek philosopher. Plato was the disciple of Socrates. You all must have heard the name of Socrates. Socrates was also a great philosopher in Greece, and Plato was the disciple of Socrates. In fact, you must have also heard the name of Aristotle. Socrates, his disciple was Plato, and Plato's disciple was Aristotle. These are the three gems in Greek philosophical history, in Greek philosophy. Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, they were the gigantic personalities, great Greek philosophers who were living in 4th, 5th, and 6th century BC. BC means before Christ. Anyways, Plato, being a philosopher, and Plato being a leader of his country, he was much worried about the future of his country, Greece. When Plato grew up as a young man, he thought about the future of his country. And he was worried about the future of his country. After all his observations, after all his research, he comes to a conclusion. That my country, Greece, is going to decline, or it is declining because of some reasons. Friends, Greek art, Greek culture, Greek literature had enjoyed a heyday, had enjoyed a good time before the times of Plato. But when Plato grows up, he observes that the great flowering period is almost over now. And Plato believed that if we do not do something right now, then our country is going to decline further. So he was worried about the future of his country. And Plato had a dream in his mind. Plato's dream was to construct an ideal state Plato's dream was to construct an ideal state. State means country. He wanted to build up an ideal country for the next generation. And he believed that if you want to construct an ideal state or ideal country, first you need to construct an ideal citizen. An ideal citizen, because an ideal country is called an ideal country only when there are ideal citizens in the country. So Plato believed that if you want the growth of a nation, the growth of a country, you need to focus on the citizens of the country. And he wanted to construct, or he wanted to build ideal citizens in the country and thereby to build an ideal state. Now when he was observing the people, the citizens of his country in those times, he found that people are somewhere misled or misguided by somebody, and he comes to a conclusion that the people are misled or misguided by none other than poetry and poets. He says that it is the poet or it is the poetry which misleads the country, which misleads the citizens of my country. Now Plato was a philosopher. Plato was a moralist. As a moralist and as a philosopher, he observes that poets and poetry are misguiding the society, misguiding the country, misguiding the citizens of this country. And that is the reason why Plato declared that no poets and no poetry should live in my country. Plato banished the poets and poetry from his country. He did not allow any poet to write poetry in his country. And not only this, he literally burnt the poetry which was written in those times. And he said that if anyone wants to write poetry in the country, he or she is not allowed to live here. Either you stop writing poetry or you leave this country. You are banished from this country. And that is the reason why he declares a verdict. He declares a verdict. Verdict means chukado. He says that, and using the words of Plato, he writes that, therefore anyone of these gentlemen comes to us and makes a proposal to exhibit himself and his poetry, we must fall down and worship him as a sweet and holy and wonderful thing. But we must also inform him that in our state, in our country, such as he are not permitted to exist, the law will not allow them. Friends, it's a bit long sentence, but let me repeat it again and I will explain it to you in detail. He says that, therefore, any one of these gentlemen means who? The poets. When any one of these poets comes to us and makes a proposal to exhibit himself and his poetry, in short, what Plato wants to say is that if the poets come to us and they propose us that we want to exhibit our poetry, we want to tell you a poetry, a poem, then Plato says we must fall down in the feet of the poets. We must bow down to the feet of the poet, and worship him as a sweet and holy and wonderful thing. He says that the poets are the sweet people. He says that the poets are the holy people. He says that the poets are the wonderful people. So, when any one of these gentlemen comes to us and makes a proposal to exhibit himself and his poetry, we must fall down and worship him as a sweet and holy and wonderful thing. But we must also inform him. We must also inform the poets that in our country, such as he are not permitted to exist. The law will not allow them. We worship the poets. They are sweet people. They are holy people. They are wonderful people. But we must also inform him that in our country they are not permitted to exist. The law will not allow them. So in short, Plato banished the poets and poetry from his country. Plato did not allow poets and poetry in his country. Now the question that you must be wondering is why? What was wrong with the poets and poetry in those times? Or why Plato rejected the poets and poetry? What was the problem with the poets and poetry that Plato rejected them all of a sudden? Then let me explain this to you. Friends, in those times, I am talking about 5th century BC in Greece, in Europe. In those times, the philosophers, the orators, Plato was a philosopher and an orator. In those times, the philosophers and orators were the leaders of the country. And these people, these leaders, they had a very important role to play as far as the administration of the governance of the country is concerned. Even the kings also respected them. So what the philosophers believed and what the philosophers said about the country, even the kings also used to follow them. So Plato was not an ordinary man. Plato was not an ordinary scholar. He was a great philosopher, a great orator. And when he says that poets and poetry are not allowed in the country, the king also had to follow his guidelines. Now the question is, why? Why Plato rejected the poets and poetry? As I told you in the beginning of this lecture today, that Plato was worried about the future of the country. Plato wanted to build an ideal state, an ideal country. And Plato wanted to construct an ideal state and ideal citizens first. And he believed that poetry is misguiding the citizens. Poetry is misleading the citizens. If the citizens are misled or misguided, then these citizens cannot be the ideal citizens in the country. And if there are no ideal citizens in the country, your country cannot be an ideal country. Your country cannot be an ideal state. Now again the question still remains, why? What was the problem with the poets and poetry? Plato has written many dialogues. In those times, the books were called dialogues because the books were written in the form of dialogues between two characters. So Plato has written his philosophical ideas. Plato has presented his philosophical ideas in the form of dialogues between two characters. So those were not considered the books. They were not called the books, but they were known as dialogues. And in total it is believed that Plato has written 13 dialogues. And out of these 13 dialogues, we are more concerned with two dialogues, means two books. One is Ion, I-O-N, Ion, and another one is the Republic, R-E-P-U-B-L-I-C. So Ion and Republic. Sorry. So we are more concerned with Plato's these two dialogues, Ion and Republic. In these two books, in these two dialogues, Plato has discussed or has given two important theories. And these two theories are the theory, let me write it down here. The theory of inspiration. Theory of inspiration and the theory of imitation, or the theory of imitation is also known as the theory of mimesis. In his two dialogues, Ion and Republic, Plato has discussed two of his important theories. One, the theory of inspiration, and two, the theory of imitation. Imitation in Greek language is also known as mimesis. So this theory is also known as the theory of mimesis. In English, you can call it the theory of imitation. So inspiration and imitation. These are the two theories he has discussed in Ion and Republic in order to establish the fact that poets are not good for the health of the country. Poets are not good for the moral health of the citizens. If you want to construct the ideal state, you need to focus on the construction of ideal citizens. And to construct the ideal citizens, you need to keep poetry and poets away from these citizens. And to explain this view, to explain this concept or idea, he has given these two theories, theory of inspiration and theory of imitation. Now, what is this theory of inspiration? That we want to discuss right now. Inspiration means prerna. In Gujarati we call it prerna. Plato believed that poets are not poets until they are inspired by the muse. M-U-S-E. Muse. Muse is the name of a goddess of knowledge. Plato believed that poets are not poets until they are inspired by the muse. Means what Plato wanted to say was that when a poet wants to write something, or when a poet wants to create something, create his poetry, muse must first of all inspire the poets. Poets on their own are useless. Poets themselves cannot write anything, cannot create anything. God or goddess muse first of all inspires the poets. Friends, some of you must have taken Sanskrit as your subsidiary subject in your graduation. In first and second year you must have studied Sanskrit literature. In Sanskrit literature also, if you examine, then the great poetry is written by the poets in Sanskrit literature. But first of all, the initial slokas, the initial verses in Sanskrit, it is what? These verses are what? These verses are the prayers to God. The poet first of all prays to God and requests God to give him knowledge, to enlighten him to write that poetry. So when they are inspired by God, when they are enlightened by God or goddess of knowledge, then and then only they start writing poetry. In Sanskrit that is a tradition. In Greece also this was the tradition, that great poetry was first, the great poets were first inspired by the muse, and then only they can write. They will be able to write something, they will be able to create something, some good poetry. So, Plato said that the mind is no longer in him until the muse inspires the poet. Means the poets have no mind. The poets themselves cannot create anything. Number one, this is one point. Another point, he gives us the term divine frenzy. Divine frenzy, D-I-V-I-N-E and F-R-E-N-Z-Y. Divine frenzy. Frenzy means madness. Madness, you understand? Pagalpan. Divine frenzy, divine madness, pagalpan. What kind of madness? Divine madness. Divine means the madness which is inspired. The madness which is inspired by God, by the goddess, muse. He says that when a poet writes poetry, he is in the mental state of divine frenzy, a kind of pagalpan is there in him, and in that condition he writes something. Even John Dryden also has said the same thing. That he said that great wits are sure to madness near allied. I repeat it again. Great wits are sure to madness near allied. That means what? John Dryden believed that great intellectual people are almost near to madness. There is not much difference between highly intellectual people and mad people. So madness and intellectualism go together. Even William Shakespeare has also said the same thing in one of his plays, that the poets, the lover, the poet, the lover, and the lunatic are of imagination all compact. Means Shakespeare said that there is not much difference between the poet, the lover, and the lunatic. Lunatic means a madman. पागल, एक पागल आदमी, एक कवि और एक lover. There is not much difference between among these three. Why? Because all are of imagination, all compare. सभी में कल्पना कूट कूट कर भरी हुई होती है. Imagination is there in all these three. Who? The lover, the poet, and the lunatic. So Plato also, centuries before, Plato also said that when a poet wants to write poetry, a kind of divine frenzy he is passing through, and in that mental state he creates something, and he creates poetry which is full of imagination. कवि वह रचना करता है जो कल्पना से भरी हुई होती है. It is full of imagination. And when this poetry goes to the reader, the citizens, the readers read this poetry. When the readers read that poetry, the same divine frenzy enters into the minds and hearts of the readers. In short, what Plato wanted to prove that, he said that काव्य आदमी को पागल बना देता है. क्यों? क्योंकि काव्य कल्पना से भरे हुए होते हैं. Poetry is full of imagination, and poetry makes the readers highly imaginative. And there is a difference between imagination and reality. So when you revel too much in imaginary world, then what happens? You forget your real world. You keep away from reality when you read poetry. And according to Plato, true citizens, ideal citizens, must not forget the real issues, the real ground problems. And poetry, according to Plato, misguides the nation, misguides the citizens. Why? Because poetry is full of imagination. In poetry, there is divine frenzy, kind of madness is there in poetry, which enters into the minds of the citizens, of the readers, which is not good for the health of the country, which is not good for the moral health of the country. And that is the reason why Plato said that we must burn poetry, we must not allow the poets to live in the country. And that's why he said that we will fall down and worship him as a sweet and holy and wonderful thing. But we must also inform him that in our country, such as he, such as the poets, are not allowed to exist. The law will not allow them. So friends, this is what I wanted to tell you about the theory of inspiration. In the next lecture, we will discuss the theory of mimesis, theory of imitation in the next lecture. If you have any questions, any doubts, any queries, do let me know. You feel free to ask me the questions on my number. Till then, goodbye, take care, and stay home, stay healthy. Thank you.